And welcome back to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a late summer edition. Some would call it midsummer, based on a pre-pod conversation with Jake,
Yeah,
saying that we're in the middle of summer.
it's the middle of summer.
But last I checked, September 1st is this Sunday. So summer is winding down, I would say.
I mean, we're a month out. For me, the official end of summer is when hockey starts.
Okay.
Like, we'll go with that.
Well, I think that this is probably the first, maybe the last few days. I'm kind of starting to feel like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready
Oh,
for hockey again.
it hit me today. It hit me today that I was like, all right, I'm over listening to music at work. I'm over listening to
That's what this boils down to.
whatever podcasts, non-hockey related, that I'm listening to. I want my hockey content that I can listen to and enjoy hearing about random players that I probably won't be watching this much of this season from various different commentators talking about. That's really what I'm missing here, and just that nice little feeling of home with that.
Yeah,
As we prepare.
I feel like the hockey podcasting and like the preview content world is not very strong. Like as someone who follows the NFL preview content is very, very good. You can know absolutely everything about every team well in advance. So we're going to do our best to give people that for the Ducks at least, you know?
Yeah.
We want
Yep.
people to be ready for the season.
Would you consider this the first episode of the 2024-2025 season?
I said the exact same thing last podcast and you shot me down.
The
You
last
you put me
wait,
on blast.
That was a Patreon episode, though.
Well, the last time that we did I don't remember. There was just a time where I said that recently and you said, no, no way. And that wasn't that long ago. But that's okay.
Yeah, you know, this I think this is the first episode of the 24-25 season.
I think that this is like a soft launch.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of the beginning.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's not quite showtime, but it's like dress rehearsal time.
Yeah, yeah. Lou's trying to say the Mitch Brown episode could be the first. I feel like that is
No.
still of that. That was the 23-24 season.
That is like a peak off-season episode.
Yeah, this
Um,
is the first. We're actually maybe going to be talking about something that impacts next season.
I don't know
Well,
if I don't know if we can really call this a regular season or not regular season, but like part of the season as an episode because you are still wearing a cutoff shirt for those who can't see, a sleeveless shirt.
I
Which
do that during the season also.
that speaks to the off season more than the regular season.
Fair. But the Ducks actually gave us a bit of news today.
They did.
Which, like, when that dropped, I was like, oh, as we were discussing if we were going to go live today or not and figuring out the scheduling of this episode, the fact that this drops was kind of perfect timing for us. It's like the Ducks know when we're going to record, even when we haven't announced it, because the Ducks today announced that they will no longer be on Bally Sports for this upcoming season. So if you missed the announcement, here is what it is. They have partnered with Victory Plus, which is, I believe, something that the Dallas Stars announced this offseason that they would be partnering with. It is, let me see really quickly. They have experience with Dude Perfect streaming service and Kidoodle.tv per the press release, but essentially it will be a streaming app that will be completely free of charge for anyone in network. And it will give people free direct-to-consumer streaming service created for Ducks fans. And then that will give all of the local broadcasts, so any game not on ESPN, ESPN Plus,
TNT.
or TNT, and that's not considering all of the games that are in ESPN Plus for out-of-market. This is only in-market fans will be on Victory Plus. And then in addition to that, the Ducks announced that all of the game, or 65 games, sorry, not all of the games, 65 games will be available on KCOP. So if you're someone that does not like streaming, that you prefer traditional television, spacing on the name for or over-the-air television, cable television, anything like that, if you have KCOP 13, you will have access to watch the Ducks for 65 of their games this season. So the vast majority of the games you will be able to watch. There will also be some of those that will be on TNT, on ESPN, and ESPN Plus exclusives. And then you'll probably just have to maybe watch 5 games on Victory Plus if you are someone that just prefers cable television and watching it that way. And it sounds like the Victory Plus app will be available on all streaming services, everything like that. And so personally, I think this is a really, really fun thing for them to announce, a really good thing. The timing of this just came up perfect for the Ducks, where I remember last season we talked about, and it was unclear whether the Bally Sports contract was up last season or last summer or this summer, but it was one of these 2 summers, and we had not heard an announcement of from the Ducks whether or not they were going to be going or sticking with Bally's, where they were going to go with this. And so I was really curious how this was going to shake out. And we've been seeing more and more teams going to this model. And essentially what it's going to do is it's going to have the Ducks be able to buy their ads probably on their own or Victory Plus, things like that, make it a bit more streamlined where the ads are going to be coming from that side of it. So there will be ads throughout it, things like that. But I think just as a Ducks fan, this is, I think, a really nice step forward. I think that this is where things are going, where you're providing these streaming services for in-market fans to make it more accessible for everyone and using ad revenue to make up some of the costs that you would have gotten from a Bally Sports contract. And then, yeah, I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add to it before we jump into kind of maybe some of the details that questions that people had about it.
I think that the number one question that keeps seeing pop up is where this will be available. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think you read it off. So I'm just going to read it off here. It's going to be available within the Ducks regional television territory, which includes Orange County, LA County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, San Diego County, Imperial County, Santa Barbara, Ventura counties, and Hawaii. So if you're a Ducks fan over in Hawaii, then you get access to this as well. So pretty much, is that all of Southern California or most of it? I mean, I guess people living in Kern County kind of get the short end of the stick there, but I guess you are the demarcation point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that there's a lot of Ducks fans, all over SoCal, and that there are definitely quite a few in San Diego, and I feel like those are the people that I've just seen come up on Twitter that are concerned. So San Diego folks, you will have access to this, and you'll be just fine.
And similarly, I've seen some people concerned about if you're not in. We actually have the most casual lurker chiming in our YouTube chat saying he's in Kern.
I feel bad for those folks. Like Bakersfield to me it's right there, but
I mean, I think they're considered part of LA County, but not, or the LA Kings market, but not the Ducks market. But for anyone out of market, even those in Kern County not included in this, no, you do not get access to the free version of this on Victory Plus. But your method of watching the Ducks does not change at all. You will be able to watch the Ducks through ESPN Plus. All it will be is you'll be watching the Victory Plus version of the stream if you're watching the Ducks home stream on ESPN Plus. So it's just swapping out that you're watching from a Bally stream to a Victory Plus stream. It is the only change there. So you'll still be using ESPN Plus. Yeah,
that's actually the one thing I was still wondering about is when because for example, I'm one of those out of market people. Mm-hmm. I was wondering when I'm watching ESPN Plus, will I have the option to watch this Victory Plus broadcast? Okay.
Yes.
But I get to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. that is the key distinction there. But to be fair, with ESPN Plus, you were getting multiple teams throughout that. So if you divided like
different service,
very, very, very different service throughout it. And it seems like, just looking at their kind of Q&A about, it seems like the talent is all going to be the same. So for anyone wondering about Brian Hayward and John Allers, no changes there. It seemed like the pregame show and all that stuff is going to remain the same.
Ali Lozoff, Guilbert, Kent French, all will be part of the team.
Yep. And for anyone that isn't able to watch it live, by the looks of it, it says games will be available for 72 hours after as an on-demand offering.
Ooh.
So once the 72 hours is up, the game will be removed from Victory Plus per NHL regulations. And you can start a game late also and watch it from start.
Okay.
So it is essentially a built-in DVR, basically. So overall thoughts, Felix?
Well, I'm just happy for Ducks fans that live in Southern California. I think that I feel like I've had this conversation with so many people over the summer, is like, it is so complicated to be a sports fan in the 2020s. Like the amount of subscriptions, the amount of kind of hoops you have to jump through just to watch your team, just to watch different teams, just to watch the game. It just feels like it's never been more complicated. And I feel like with this, at least for watching the Ducks have cut all of that out. They've cut out the middleman. You just have to download an app on whatever device you're going to use this with, and you will be good to go. You will have full access to Ducks games. So I think just from a fan relationship, building the brand, building the game, creating and generating interest, this is a great move because this is removing a tremendous barrier of entry, to
Yeah.
watch the game, and now it's going to be easier than
Yeah.
ever. I hope that they really kind of hammer away at that as much as possible. I hope that they really try to grow the fan base as much as possible given this
Yeah.
little hack. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing overall.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, I think if you looked at it, I think Bally Sports Plus, that streaming service, which was very confusing to figure out how to be able which package to get to watch Ducks games versus only getting Kings and Ducks, like only getting some Ducks games. It was confusing. It was like $25 though a month. So they're going from charging fans $25 a month to being completely free. Like, I think a lot of fans will take the ads for that, and it gives people the ability to cut cable if they want to and go to completely streaming. Because if you have ESPN Plus, I believe you can watch any of the ESPN games. If you have HBO Max, I think it's just Max now.
You
If
get
Max,
TNT.
I think you get the TNT games. So if you wanted to completely cut the cable, if the Ducks were the only thing holding you onto your cable and you wanted to cord cut, you could do that and not need to get a YouTube TV. But I think for those that have YouTube TV like me, it's nice that there are going to be games on KCOP, because my only concern for this, and this is just overall a concern always for me with a new service, is how is the app going to work? Because the Bally's app was garbage. I had to go through a hack to be able to get it to work, where it just was really difficult. It would never go straight from the pregame show into the game. So it just was never like easy to be able to dial it up for the game to be ready when it started. It would crash. I know our good friend Jack Janes could never watch a game, or could barely watch games, and was always behind. It was laggy. And so the Bally's app was just absolutely garbage. So I think one of the things that moving forward, the Victory Plus team needs to absolutely nail is their app and have it working well. Because for me personally, I'm probably going to be watching games on KCOP until I am able to see, and maybe I'll watch a game back on Victory Plus, or maybe I'll watch a few games here and there on there just to see how it's working. Because for now, I'm probably going to trust KCOP on YouTube TV a bit more than that. But I think overall, this is just a great move to make the game more accessible. I know, talking to a buddy of mine who used to watch a bunch of games, things like that, kind of has fallen off with how the team has fallen off, and understandable from that perspective. Hasn't really watched just because of not having cable, not wanting to pay the $25 a month. And I sent him this, like, oh, I'll probably watch games this season.
Yeah.
Like, just that ease of like, okay, it's free, might as well throw it on. Like, that just makes life so much easier for fans out there to be able to watch. So very, very excited for this. Very excited for what it's going to bring for the Ducks fan base, for everything like that. And as a side note, they mention unclear yet on preseason games, but I would imagine this makes it a lot easier to stream preseason games.
Yeah, I have no clue how that's going to work still.
Like, you have your own network.
Yeah, but you still need to bring all the like production crew.
That's
and
fair.
Like, there's still a logistical component that I feel like they're not going to do. I would just, honestly, just for everyone's just kind of mental health, I would not expect most preseason games to be broadcasted. And if they do, great. I would be pleasantly surprised, but that just seems like an easy cost-cutting move for the Ducks to not
That's true.
bring out all the talent for multiple preseason games.
Yeah.
Or maybe they take a different approach and say, well, this is a great time to roll everything out and, maybe like test drive the app and all that. So who knows? I just wouldn't hold my breath because of the way the Ducks have done it.
The only other point I wanted to make on this is it just feels like a very fresh start for this organization. Like, yes, Brian Hayward and Joel Allers are there, so the actual like
the talent,
way that you're the talent, the way you're watching it is not going to be necessarily different from that perspective, but it just feels like a brand new step forward. Like, the Ducks have been on Fox Sports / Bally's for what, 25 years?
Over a decade, yeah,
like over 2 decades, like a long time. And so we have this new logo, new jerseys. Feels like a new era is officially starting for this Ducks team. And it just feels like everything is going that way. And it's just a fun thing to see. And the only other thing I've got, though, is I hope to God the score bug is different. I hope to God that they don't just take the Bally score bug and modify it a little bit. Like, give me a score bug in the top left-hand corner of the screen. It's a small box.
Oh God, just get rid of the out-of-town scores, and I'll be happy.
Like, there is no need for this massive line on the bottom of the screen that takes up the entire bottom part of the ice where players go to. Like, it literally blocks part of the ice.
I also don't
Like,
care what the score is in the Clippers Bucks game as
yeah,
I'm watching the
give
Ducks. Like
me
I just don't.
the last like Fox Sports West score bug was like perfect. A box in the top left corner.
Just do
That's
the
all you need.
ESPN.
Yeah, exactly.
ESPN. Yeah, this
Exactly.
isn't
Same.
hard.
No, not at all. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a cool thing. Should note that this is kind of like a product of circumstance. This isn't something where the Ducks like clearly there's a lot of planning and a lot of legal hoops that have to be jumped through to get to this point where you have this new partnership and where you can roll out this new service. So it's definitely not something the Ducks just decided to do out of the blue, but it's definitely a product of the circumstance of everything that's gone on with Bally's and Diamond Sports and the bankruptcy and the uncertainty there. So while yes, this is a great move for fan engagement and all of that and growing the game, we also have to keep in mind that if it weren't for all the uncertainty and turbulence that has occurred with Bally's, it's very possible that this would have never happened. So that being said, the Ducks could have chosen another path and stayed with Bally's for the upcoming season. I believe that that was an option. They didn't do that. They went this route. And this is probably the safer route because this deal is through the next 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And then they have an option to keep going afterwards. So this is kind of an open-ended thing. Feels short term until the next phase of the broadcasting rights can be figured out. And honestly, I think that this is a great business decision.
Yeah.
Just because if you think about it, with all of the uncertainty around broadcasting and streaming and where all that's going to go, to kind of have this short-term option that's probably still going to make enough money to be worth it while avoiding hitching yourself to the wrong wagon, being able to then come back out and see what's going on in a couple of years market-wise, like this is actually pretty tidy piece of business by the Ducks.
The Ducks essentially can have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
They can at this point say, because last season I think Vegas did something like this, and I think the Coyotes also did something like this.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
I think the Stars did too, if I'm not mistaken.
This is the first season for the Stars, I think. Victory Plus, I think, launched this summer with the Dallas Stars.
Okay.
So the Dallas Stars were going to be the only team on Victory Plus from an NHL perspective, and now the Ducks are also going to be on it. So this allows the Ducks to have their cake and eat it too. They're able to kind of be at the forefront of this, be one of the first few teams to start going to this local broadcast model that is completely free to consumer. They are controlling it a bit more. There's no middleman necessarily from an ad revenue perspective, or I guess I should say it may be a little bit different than the traditional model. But it allows the Ducks to see how that model works before committing to it long term, like you had said. Logan's saying Dallas started last year, actually, so correcting me there.
I was right.
You were correct.
My
one apologies there. But
one thing I also wanted to point out is that the Victory Plus for Dallas is going to be broadcasting apparently all their preseason games. So maybe that means that they'll do the same for the Ducks again.
Maybe.
Don't hold your breaths, folks, but
Yeah.
potentially cause for optimism.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. But it allows the Ducks to see how profitable it is. And if in the next few years...
Profitable?
Is that profitable? I definitely...
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself there.
No, I respect it. Profitable. Wow, that just derailed me
I mean,
completely.
I could have let you keep going and
then
circle
said
back, but
it's fine. It's fine. But it can allow the Ducks to see how profitable. I'm now all over my brain on that word. I cannot to see if they can turn a profit on this, and if in the next 2 years something else comes up that is a better option for them long term and better option for fans, so they can kind of have their cake and eat it too with this.
Yeah, I'm very curious. People are rightfully worried about, will there be a lot of advertising on this? And I think that's fair. I think that probably the Ducks, to make this worth it, are going to sell a crap ton of ads, as they should. That being said, though, was Bally's this like ad-free experience for people? Like, were there just no ads before?
Yeah, I mean, they started jumping to that picture-in-picture situation during like times between face-offs, not during a full commercial TV timeout, where they showed Honda stuff.
This notion that there's going to be too many ads, like there's already way too many ads. So if your standard, I don't know what your standard is at this point for ads, but I actually think the NHL in terms of ads is probably by virtue of being the smallest sport, is probably the best in terms of
Yeah.
ad volume being annoying because NFL, NBA are so much worse. So
Bonnie
anyway,
brings up a great point that it was like the same 5 ads over and over and over on
what was
Bally.
it?
It was like
Cowboys of Tustin,
no on Bally's. It was like there was a
tilted
Honda
kilt.
commercial. There was what was that? There was the olive commercial.
Oh yeah, I remember. Was that the one with Zegras? Or they had Zegras at
Yes.
one point? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that the Ducks are in a good spot for that. We'll see how the ads are, and KCOP is going to be different from that. So if you have cable and want to watch it there, you can.
Is it bad that this whole time I've thought it was K-Cop? I never actually heard someone out loud like say how people
Yeah.
describe that.
KCOP 13.
KCOP.
My 13.
I always thought it was K-Cop.
Nope.
K-Cop
Nope.
sounds better.
Okay. Just like wrap them.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one. Different.
All right. Speaking of advertisements, though, the hockey season is fastly approaching. I don't know if fastly is an actually word, but we're gonna roll with it. And baseball season is coming to an end. And if you're an Angels fan, I'm so sorry. It's been painful. But if you're looking for a game to go to this upcoming hockey season or at the end of the baseball season, 714 Tickets has got you covered. But here's the best parts. At 714 Tickets, they're not just about hockey and baseball. They've got tickets to all of your favorite sports, concerts, and live events right at your fingertips. And the icing on the cake, they don't charge you a single dime in taxes or fees. That's right. At 714 Tickets, what you see is what you get. No surprises at checkout, and with their user-friendly mobile app, booking your tickets is a breeze. You can browse, select, and secure your seats within minutes. You can shop online at 714tickets.com or call 714-TICKETS, or you can visit their new office across the freeway from Honda Center, and you can get 10% off when you shop online using the code CTP.
I'll give you praise for that transition. That was a nifty transition.
Thank you. It popped in my head. It's like perfect timing.
That was like a little, forehand backhand move.
Yeah.
Not too flashy. No backhand toe drag or anything like that.
Was
But
it backhand top shelf?
no. I'm just no. It's like a move in the neutral zone, like just
Oh,
just to
okay.
get around a defender. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, gotta give you your plaudits.
Thank you.
To balance out the other things. All right.
Thanks.
So we do have a topic for today that is hockey related, unless you have anything else relating to this Victory Plus situation.
Nope. I don't know how we spoke for 20 minutes on that, but
Well,
sometimes it happens.
I mean, 20 minutes seems right. 20 minutes is a good
fair.
length.
Fair.
I think that, again, for me, I live out of market, so it straight up doesn't matter at all. I think what's going to be interesting is just, I guess, just the difference in how it looks and like the visual experience. But I watch most games with the sound off anyway, and I skip through as much as I can. So it's probably not going to affect me very much. Okay. Today's show, now getting back into the theme that we were talking about earlier in the podcast about preparing for the upcoming season. This is the first podcast of the season. We're calling it that. And to help you prepare, we're going to start, kind of orienting the thought process here of players to watch for, training camp, all of that. So we have 3 categories today that we're going to have to fill in. And hopefully we won't conflict. So one player who we think will surprise this season. So surprise, you can interpret that however you want. One player who we think, expectations should be a little tempered. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Again, interpret that how you want. And then the last one bounce back candidate. So this is pretty clear cut. One player who's going to be better this season than they were last year. So with that being said, let's start with one player who will surprise us. Jake, the floor is yours. Make your pick.
I'm going to go with one that I'm just going to preface this a bit. This is going out on a limb here, because I'm trying to think about players who have been poor the last 2 years, who have been beat down.
Who've been poor?
Yeah, who've been bad. I don't know. I've been sick the last couple days. Give me a break here. I've had the brain fog a little bit going. So
Yeah.
Who might be beat down a little bit by the fan base, and someone that I think has been poor or been bad. Now I'm really second guessing every word I say. So there's that. I'm gonna go with Ryan Strome.
Wow. Did not expect that.
I know.
Wow,
And
wow,
so
wow. Okay.
Ryan Strome was a player who 2 years ago was absolutely awful, really, really, really poor. Like there's no way around how bad he was. Last season was better than the season before, but also was not a good season by the amount the Ducks are paying him. And I think he's going to be a player that, if you look at last season and where he ended up playing, he was playing on a second line, sometimes even a first line, just due to injuries on the team and things like that. I think for this season, he's going to slot into a third line role. He's not going to be relied upon as much in some higher minutes, not going to have as heavy competition. I think maybe teammates might be a little weaker for him, but I think he's just going to be in a better situation, a better role, and a better environment for him to succeed. And so with that being the case, I think he is going to surprise some people for this upcoming season. This is a complete bet by me. I could really look bad with this pick with how horrible he could be this upcoming season. But I want to root for him. He's a player that when he was with the Rangers had a couple of really, really good seasons, granted being with Artemi Panarin. But I think he's going to surprise some people, and we'll go with that pick. It's a pure hope pick. There's not a whole lot of numbers or sound logic behind it outside of just going with a gut feel on it.
Well, that is a fascinating pick. I did not expect you to say that.
That was the one I was like, there's no way you're predicting this one from me.
I'm glad you did, though, because I actually think, counter to what you said, that there's no statistical basis for this. When you kind of look just at his numbers, I think that there is a basis, because
Okay.
2 years ago, he was dreadful. I mean, his defensive impact was like Derek Grant bad.
Yeah.
That's the bar. That's the low bar.
Wow. Went
He was
there with it.
he was awful. I don't know why Derek Grant's been popping up in my head lately. Don't know why. Don't ask me why. We're gonna move on from that one. But this past season, Ryan Strome's numbers were quite a bit improved. I mean, markedly improved. And some of his offensive impact did dry up, but the defensive game came all the way back from Derek Grant land to merely just not great.
Just poor.
Just poor. And then when you look at his tracking numbers, which there's always going to be the caveat here of smaller sample, and also we don't necessarily know when the games were tracked. So it could have been early in the season, could have been late in the season. But Ryan Strome had some really positive underlying markers just from a microstat perspective. In terms of playmaking, creating scoring chances for his line mates, setting up chances in the slot, getting dangerous passes off. He actually was well above average in quite a few of these markers. And even in his defensive involvement, his puck touches in the defensive zone, retrieving the puck, getting it out of the zone, some really positive indicators there as well. And what's interesting is that his zone entries were very low. So it seems like he went from the guy carrying the mail, trying to enter the puck into the zone, and maybe in years past, and now really it seems like truly a support player. And once you're in that offensive zone, then he can create plays. So maybe in a lesser role, or even just next to guys who maybe are blossoming more, younger players, maybe we do see that comeback.
And maybe it's something where him playing center in the third line role puts him in a better spot as compared to being on the wing in a more elevated role also.
Yeah.
So by a numerical logic behind it, I was more so looking at the overall stats. I had not actually looked at the microstats, and you're spot on there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting call, and I think again, Ryan Strome wasn't great last year and wasn't living up to his contract. There were legit times where I think I tweeted so what does Ryan Strome do exactly? But there were also definitely flashes in there of a player who could be useful. So I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's a bit of a hope play, but one that I hope that he ends up having a bounce back also, because I think that is someone where if he can get back to a level where he's performing at his contract, not exceeding, but at his contract, that's a huge plus for this Ducks team, and one that I don't think a lot of people would have expected, and would be a pretty big driver of them making a push towards a playoff position.
Let me ask you this. What does a $5 million production look like to you?
I'd say Did I go where, or did you?
You froze there for a little bit. I don't know what just happened.
Sorry. 40 to 50 points is what I said.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Just trying to conceptualize in
That's
my
just
head.
going off the cuff there.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Okay, my surprise pick. I actually went with the spray and pray approach.
Okay.
So I have four different candidates with
Okay.
varying degrees of like belief in them. I'm going to start with a player that will surprise people, and I actually don't even know his status, but I'm just going to say that it will be a surprise no matter what. Brock McGinn. Remember him? Remember Brock McGinn?
That is a
He's
that is a fantastic pull because I forgot about him. And
he's
I'm
on
a
this
bit,
team.
and I like Brock McGinn.
Yeah.
I 100% like Brock McGinn. I was one that was really pushing that he should be in the lineup over Ross Johnston every single game. And yeah.
I,
So,
I I think if Brock McGinn had been healthy last year, he would have gotten those minutes, or he would have
mhm.
gotten a lot more of those minutes. And he kind of just had this phantom injury. I remember at one point he started skating again, and then I think afterwards he stopped. He might have had like a surgery. I don't remember exactly, but the hope here is that he's healthy, and when he is healthy, he's just a solid fourth line winger, like maybe even third line in spot minutes. So I think that if he's healthy at all, I think he'll play, and I think he does have something to bring to this team. My other three, I have three other candidates for this, so I'll just,
Really quick on Brock McGinn. I think one
uh
thing
huh,
that he also does well that this Ducks team, it's maybe a little bit up in the air in
hmm
terms of how they can do on it is penalty killing. So last
yeah,
season he was plus. Actually, looking at his time in Pittsburgh, he was negative, but only slightly below average or below replacement in that. So the Ducks don't have the best penalty killers from a forward perspective. Isaac Lundestrom, I think, was good at it. Jacob Silverberg is no longer on this team, and he was good at it. But Frank Vetrano is not a good penalty killer. I, I'm curious who is going to be deployed in those situations, and I think Brock McGinn, probably Jansen Harkins is another guy that would probably be good for that situation.
Brett Leeson.
Brett Leeson, like these are guys that I think will get those minutes. So I think Brock McGinn's a good pull for that.
Yeah, McGinn, Leeson, Lundestrom, and then maybe mix in like one offensive guy. And I think that you have an interesting PK forward lineup. I was going to say Jackson Lacombe as well. And I don't know how much of a surprise it would be, but I feel like he kind of fell off the radar at the end of last season. And I feel like he's just a little further along than I think people realize just with age and physical development. And I think that he's actually going to be able to get to his game a lot faster than maybe some of the younger players on this team will be able to this upcoming season. And I think that he's going to kind of insert himself into that conversation as one of these core pieces on the blue line. So that was my other pick. And then one more I wanted to throw out there. This is a Hail Mary.
Okay.
Jan Mishak.
Oh,
So
I thought you were gonna go Beckett Seneca.
no. Jan Mishak to me is a guy that they traded for him last year. They
Yeah.
traded Jacob Perreault to get him. And I watched a bit of him down in the AHL, and he didn't get a ton of playing time or consistent ice time, but he has a very high motor. He has physicality. He has some skill along the boards, like that kind of small area skill. He just kind of screams a Pat Verbeek, Greg Cronin player, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe get a shot out of training camp. So
Mm-hmm.
those are my three. Spray and pray
Yep.
approach. Hopefully
Yep.
one of them will stick. Okay. Next category. A little bit of a darker turn here. Maybe not necessarily dark, but
No, I think that this is not meant to. The one I picked is not really dark.
one player who we should temper our expectations about. So this doesn't mean like purely a regression candidate, someone who's just going to be worse than they were, but someone who we should be careful about. Who is that player for you?
Oh, I get to go first. Cutter Gauthier.
Wow.
I think that
Okay.
that's an easy one. I think that there's a lot of fans out there that will see him as this shiny toy. And in some ways, you see that with Leo Carlson and some people. I think not within the Ducks fan base necessarily, but certainly outside of it, that were like, what type of season did he have? He only put up this many points, that type of thing. And I think some people will look at Cutter Gauthier and look at what he did in college and how many goals he scored and think that if he is not a 20-plus goal scorer as a rookie, then he is an absolute failure. And I just think that we have to remember this is going to be his first full professional season. This is going to be his first year in the NHL. There are also flaws to his game, as Mitch Brown pointed out, as you've pointed out. And while they certainly can be negated by playing with a guy like a Leo Carlson, maybe having Alex Killorn there also on a line with them, those flaws will get exposed more at the NHL level, and he's going to have to be able to make adjustments to keep getting his goals and keep getting his points. So while I think he could certainly hit the 20-point or 20-goal mark, I think there may be people that might be expecting more than that from him, and I think that those expectations should definitely be tempered.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think that we're all kind of preemptively crowning him and saying, first line, 20 plus goals, all of that. And there is definitely a range of outcomes here for his rookie seasons. He could struggle. I think the biggest thing for him is just going to be learning how to play for Greg Cronin, because his coach at Boston College, I'm blanking on his name, but he let him play Cutter Gauthier hockey. Like, he let him float. He let him do those things that are just not going to fly with Greg Cronin. And that doesn't make Greg Cronin right about it, but Greg Cronin Greg Cronin expects a certain kind of hockey. We've seen him impose that on certain players. He wants competitiveness. He wants guys to really chase after the puck. He wants those feet moving. He wants you to be engaged at all times. And Cutter Gauthier, I think he is engaged at all times. It just doesn't look like it. And I could see him getting benched in third periods. I could see him maybe even getting scratched here and there. And maybe that'll prove to be a bit of a roadblock for his season. But yeah, I think he's a guy who people should be excited about. People should be very intrigued about. But don't expect like overnight success with him.
And that's why I don't think this is necessarily a negative. I think Cutter Gauthier is going to have a really good, really fun season. But I think just making sure your expectations are realistic, and I can definitely see that there are probably some people out there that probably have unrealistic expectations what he is going to do as a rookie in the NHL. And to be clear, I hope that he exceeds these expectations and those people are right. But I think if he doesn't meet those expectations that are extremely high, I think that that's completely fine and acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, he is a rookie, and I think that last year the Ducks got really just kind of like blessed with some crazy rookie performances that are not the norm. So, I mean, honestly, for the last few years, like Trevor Zegras was great as a rookie. I mean, it's just kind of been the way it goes.
Yep.
Okay. My player who we should temper our expectations about. I actually have two.
Okay.
Now I'm struggling a little bit with which way I'll go.
I've got another one that I can say here also.
Well, let me get one out here first.
Yeah.
Leo Carlson.
Okay.
So I think that I'm going to start with this. There is every reason to be optimistic about Leo Carlson. If you look at last year and the offseason that he had, or probably the better term is didn't have, with the draft, all the traveling, the lack of training time, I think that there's a very real case to be made that it contributed to a lot of his injury woes this season, just the lack of training that he got last summer. And this summer, he has a full off season. He can really train. He can work on his body. He can work on his game. So I think that there's great reason to think that he's going to have a great sophomore season. But the NHL is also a very difficult league. And the Ducks are going to put him in a first-line center role. And the league is going to come in and be ready for Leo Carlson this time around. I think that as a rookie, you have a little bit of that edge of teams don't know as much about you, and you can argue how long that really lasts, maybe half a season, but teams are going to be ready, and I think that he's going to have to adjust his game a little bit. And it's just the same old story we've seen, for years, which is that development doesn't always happen in a straight line. And so it could just so happen that Leo comes in, maybe can't find the back of the net or doesn't put up the points early. Maybe that messes with his confidence a little bit, and then things kind of spiral. Like, who knows, right? I'm just saying that I think that, again, there's every reason to be optimistic about this player. I am personally one of those optimists, but just given the role that he's going to be put in, it's possible that he struggles a little bit. And so for fans, I would say don't expect him to come in and be like a point per game guy and a bona fide first line center right away. Like, just enjoy the ride with Leo Carlson. Enjoy the fact that, at age 19, he was in the NHL, and that now he's already hitting the ground running. Like, enjoy that fact, but don't necessarily put like a number on it, I would say is the right approach there.
I was about to put you on the spot and say, what if you had to, what would you say an expectation point wise for him would be?
I think if he can get to 50, people should be happy. 50 points is like realistic for him.
I think I would maybe say 60. Maybe that's too high. But I think definitely a point per game for anyone thinking that. That is where you are completely correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. I think that it's just one of those where I don't want him to all of a sudden kind of start getting criticized because he's still the foundational bedrock of this franchise. So let's not go too crazy with that.
Yep.
Who is your other player?
One that popped into my head in a similar vein to these, where I think all the players we've brought up now in Gauthier and Carlson, it's not necessarily a bad thing what we're stating, because them having these high expectations just shows how excited people are for them. And I think this guy falls into a similar camp in Lukas Dostal.
Ooh, interesting.
Where you look at the performance that he had at the World Championships, wasn't he named the best goalie of the tournament?
Yeah, I think he won. Was he tournament MVP?
That's what I'm vaguely recalling here. If you want to look it up.
Well, also he had a good season for the.
He had a
Ducks.
really good season, but I think there are people that expect him to come in and be a legit bona fide number one. And while I think he could be that, I think expecting some road bumps along the way. And this is a situation where it should realistically be a 50-50 split between him and John Gibson. And it's not as if Dostal is ready to be a clear-cut number one, 60 games, and Gibson played 20 games, like some people out there might think. This is more of a situation where the Ducks are going to be rolling out a 1A, 1B between Dostal and Gibson, and that's realistically what it should be, because Dostal is going to have his poor games. They're going to happen. They happen for every goalie. And my whole thing with any sort of goalie in the NHL in general is the best goalies in the league have bad games. What separates them from the average to poor goalies is being able to stop that at one game and bounce back with a good game right after that and go on a slide of really good games and not making it 2, 3, 4 bad games in a row. And that's going to be, I think, the key for Lukas Dostal is, can he start doing that? Can he make it only a 2-game slide of poor play and bounce back? So and Bedoinkel kind of mentioned was Dostal good last year. I thought his expect goals against was bottom 50 in the league. I think his goal save. Let me check. I think his goal saved above expected It
was about average. It was like middle of the pack, which for him is a good result. Yeah,
and that's exactly kind of to the point. Is I think there are people that are expecting him to be a number one, whereas if you look at the numbers that he had last season, he was a around replacement level goaltender.
Yeah, and so, John Gibson is still like in his prime-ish. I mean, he's 31, which for a goalie isn't like a skater where you're really starting to expect decline. Like, he's still in that window where he can be a serviceable NHL goalie. That's what he was last season. So there's really no reason for the Ducks not to tap into that. And that's why I don't expect Lukas Dostal to be a number one next season, because John Gibson's right there. Why wouldn't you use that resource, even if he's not going to be necessarily as dominant as he once was? Still having just that reliable veteran, I almost said backup, that veteran goalie to be there to spell the younger goalie. I think that's the way to go. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we see a 60-40 like percentage-wise split towards Gibson. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Dostal is still getting less games, but that the gap is just much narrower than it was. So
yeah. I mean, last year it ended up being 46 games played for Gibson, 44 for Dostal. Yep. The games played for Dostal was because Gibson came out of a decent amount of games late.
Yeah, some injuries there too. So it's like you can't really use the games played in hindsight, because you'd have to go back and see when the injuries were and then which games ex-goalie got pulled in. So
And just clarifying for you, 60-40, you mean 60%, 40%.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I know that. No, I know that's what you meant. There may be some people out there that think games, but
I think I said percent, but yeah.
Okay. But yeah, who was your other one?
Again, this is another one where I don't want people to get the impression that I have low expectations for this player or that I'm not high on him, but just be slightly careful. Pavel Mintyukov, because Pavel Mintyukov came in out of nowhere and was excellent right away, played a firebrand of hockey, just really an exciting player. And I think as the season progressed, we saw those kind of peaks and valleys in his game. And I think that there's going to be times where that hyper-aggressive style is going to maybe come back to bite him a little bit. And as a defenseman, it takes time to really figure out your balance. And I think that for Minchikov, he kind of was figuring that out as the season went along. But that apprenticeship could continue into this year, and there could still be some bumps in the road. So I would just say, like, expecting him to be all of a sudden a Norris caliber defenseman or something like that, just kind of still view him as a an NHLer, but more in that prospect vein of you're looking for the development and the game to game improvement as opposed to now he's just set in stone top 4 NHLD. That's the expectation. Like I would still view him as like let's track the development for Minchikov.
Yep. All right. On to the next one.
All right, bounce back. Don't call it a comeback.
I had 2 players for this. They're probably
Okay.
completely predictable. Can I just give you them both?
Sure.
Trevor Zegras and Troy Terry.
Yeah.
Like-
I had a feeling this is where you were going to go.
Trevor Zegras, we've talked about it on various different episodes here, but with his injuries, kind of with where perception's at, I think he's going to have a massive season, massive bounce back. I think having a full off season, not being injured going into the season, having a full training camp, all of that's going to lend to him going to the season and having a fantastic season. He's also probably going to be motivated by all the rumors, everything like that are going around. And then kind of the person that's going to benefit the most from that, and we talked about this, I think a couple episodes ago, will be Troy Terry. I think Troy Terry, the biggest thing that he was missing last season was Trevor Zegras. He was the one that was, I think, impacted the most on the team by a Trevor Zegras injury and not being on the team with the chemistry that they had and how they were able to create chances for one another. And I think that his game just did not mesh with other guys on this team outside in the way that it does with the Trevor Zegras. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that he is someone that is going to benefit significantly from having Trevor Zegras back in the lineup. And they're both going to have massive bounce backs.
Yeah.
For Terry, from a points perspective, from Zegras, just an overall perspective.
You saved the best for last. But, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think Zegras just needs to play.
Yeah.
Like, nothing was really wrong with Trevor Zegras' actual play last year. It just, there wasn't enough of it.
Correct.
And then with Terry, I'm very curious how he's going to look this season. I think maybe he was too in his head last year of, like, I need to be the guy. I need to be the player. And maybe this year he kind of just goes back to that.
He still was good last year. He just wasn't as good as he had been in the past.
And it also just felt at times like he was really forcing the play. Like he was really trying to do stuff that wasn't always there. Whereas in the past, it always just felt like he was just flowing out there. Like,
well, and I think part of that is just line mates. And I think when you
maybe
have that familiarity with the Trevor Zegras and the fact that they are able to think the game similarly, I think that they are 2 guys that really work well with one another. And that's why I think that they kind of mesh well. And Zegras being healthy will have a positive impact on Troy Terry as a result.
Okay, I will now give you mine.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
And I'm going to start with this famous line.
Okay.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. And that would apply to one Cam Fowler.
Ooh.
He's been here for years, so don't call it a comeback. But we've seen this with Cam Fowler, where he goes through these rough patches in his career and then reinvents himself, comes back better, comes back fresher. And I feel like Cam Fowler is primed to have one of those return to form seasons where he's not going to be the top 4 kind of elite defenseman or anything like that, but I think he can come back and be really effective. You know, if you look at his numbers last year, I'm not going to say they were good because they weren't good, but there were elements of his numbers that you could point to and say, okay, this is a good indicator. So for example, his defensive game was actually okay, okay to maybe average is what I would call it. You could even maybe really squint and say below average, but it was not terrible. And it was actually an improvement over what he had been the season prior. Really, the big decline in his numbers was from an offensive standpoint, and a lot of that was production-based. And if you peel the onion back, a few more layers, we know how much he was playing. He was playing too much. We know that he was really kind of just ping-ponged around with different line mates, different D partners. And I think that I would imagine that the Ducks looked at that and said, yeah, this environment that we've built for Cam Fowler of crazy, variation in line mates, ice time, it didn't work. but there were still parts of it that showed that he can still play. So I think this year, maybe if you just slide down those minutes just a little bit, give him a consistent partner, or at least more consistent. Some of his, like, again, going back to the micro stats, the tracking data, like some of his, puck retrievals in the D zone, exiting the D zone were still really, really good. And so I think if you just kind of slide down the usage with him, he could still be a really serviceable defenseman. Just kind of play within his role, that kind of breakout defenseman role. Take him away from the power play. Just never put him out there for the power play at all, even though his numbers there were actually decent. And just let him be Cam Fowler in that kind of puck moving vein. And I think he could come back and maybe make some people look really foolish who were writing him off, which may or may not have been me.
I absolutely love that pick. As someone who owns a Cam Fowler jersey, who has watched his entire career, was at the draft when he was drafted, you're spot on that he's a guy that continually reinvents himself. And I said this a bunch last season of, sure, you have to evaluate the position that he's in and how he's played in that. And I've said that also with like Jackson Lacombe. You have to evaluate the position they're in and how they've played. But I think you can also have the conversation of, well, they're put in a poor situation. How would they do if they're in a better situation? And that's my thing with Cam this entire time, is that he's playing too much. He's being put in a spot that he should not be put in. I think as these younger players start taking more elevated roles and take those away from him, he's going to be put in a much better spot. And now we're in a situation where last season it was him and Gudas as kind of the two veteran guys, where maybe it was a situation where Greg Cronin didn't feel comfortable putting out a third pair late in games, and having a veteran player on that pair to be able to help out. Whereas adding a Brian Dumoulin gets you a veteran player on every single pairing where Greg Cronin can trust them in any situation, where he could reasonably split up the minutes and play each pairing a similar amount. And maybe Cam Fowler's taken off power plays completely also. And that's going to help out. Maybe his minutes on the penalty killer lessened because of a Brian Dumoulin being there. And so there are all these factors that should help lighten the load on Fowler. And with the load being lightened, with having a different partner than the majority of last season, most likely, like, this is a situation that he could end up thriving in.
Yeah. And I think that the key for me is just like, does he still have his fastball? Does he still have that thing that he's known for and that he's made a career off of? And I think the answer is yes. I think he still has the mobility. Yeah. He still has the capacity to move the puck. And as long as that's there, I think that's a player you can bet on.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And I mean, his biggest asset throughout the entirety of his career is his ability to skate and exit the zone cleanly as a result of his skating ability.
Yep.
And that was still there last season.
Yep. So as long as that's there, I think that there's always going to be a potential for a bounce back. It's just a matter of how is he going to be used and who he's going to play with. And I think that there were times towards the end of the season where when he was playing with Olin Zellweger, I feel like they kind of formed a little bit of chemistry. And I have no clue who he's going to play with. Like, could we see a Dumoulin-Fowler pairing? It feels like Dumoulin's more likely to be with a young defenseman. Could we see a Fowler-Gudas pairing? I mean, I don't know what they're going to do, but I would suggest, like, let's try to, pick early and stick with it for 15 to 20 games just to really give these guys a chance. Of course, unless it's, like, disastrous, but I would say give these pairings as much of a runway as you can before kind of deviating. So,
yep.
There you go.
Right.
There's the list.
Yep.
The juices are flowing again.
Want to get into questions as we're 55 minutes into this episode?
Yep.
All right, here we go. We're going to start with our Patreon exclusive Discord. Go to patreon.com/crashspawn, where if you subscribe at any tier, you get access to our Discord. And we have a podcast questions channel in there. So we're going to start with Tussle, who said, who's the biggest surprise to make the roster out of camp this year, following what Minchikov accomplished last season?
Wait, hold on. Which sorry, I did not catch all of that.
Who's the biggest surprise to make the roster out of camp this year?
Well, I'll restake my claim to the Jan Mishak throne. Yeah.
That's fair. I'll go with Pavel Regenda.
Okay. Sure.
I don't think there's going to be a big surprise this year. I don't expect Beckett Seneca to make the roster. That would be the only big surprise. to stake to.
I honestly wouldn't even be that surprised if he made it. Just give him the cameo, and
But I think that is the player that would be the like for this question.
I just don't think there's a spot for Beckett Seneca.
Exactly, which is why I don't think he'll be on the team.
Yeah.
Brad said, "Why are the folks predicting the Ducks to end up in the bottom 5 again wrong?"
I think part of the reason that people are predicting the Ducks are going to be bottom 5 again is that they didn't do anything this summer that was that noteworthy, and it feels like pretty much every team that is in that tier did make those moves, and so people are just assuming that the teams around them made moves, they didn't, so they're just going to be bad again. And I think those people are wrong because they're underrating the internal improvement. I could end up being wrong about this, but you know what? It's August. It's the beginning of the season. It's time for optimism.
Yep.
So I think that's why they're wrong. Is they're completely discounting the fact that there is a lot of talent in this team. There were so many injuries last year. Just let them play this year and see what happens.
Yep. Shaken Wing said, "Will Zellweger and Minchikov get new numbers this year?"
I don't think so, because
if you would have asked me like a month ago, I would have said yes.
Yeah.
But now
what changed?
The fact that the Ducks had tweeted out those numbers.
Yeah.
They tweeted out about Jackson Lacombe changing numbers, yet didn't tweet out anything about Zellweger and Minchikov.
Well, they tweeted a thing about Zellweger the other day, and it had 51 on it.
Oh, yeah, that too.
So it's kind of like, maybe they'll pull a Leo Carlson, but I don't think either of those guys are in that category. So, no.
Yeah. Shaken Wings also said, "Are the New Jerseys priced too high?" No, they're priced the exact same. Like,
I think that the super authentic ones are just crazy priced.
Yeah, but that's always going to be like, if you want an actual on ice authentic, that is like around how much it cost prior to Adidas taking over when Reebok had it. If you add in inflation and all that type of stuff, like that is the same kind of price as an authentic, and the main difference is now there's a middle tier between a pure replica and an authentic.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're priced too high. People, I think, just need to understand that what it was priced at previously is still there. They've just kind of renamed them and added in a high-level on-ice version, which was not available previously.
Yep.
So, our good friend Lou said, "Thoughts on Zegras' mullet?"
So there was a picture that surfaced today of Trevor Zegras in a workout rocking what appears to be a mullet hairstyle. I don't have any thoughts because let the man do what he wants with his hair. It's just not that noteworthy to me, but
my thoughts are, I'm usually pro mullet. I think it's a fun move. I think that the issue is it's too flat in the back.
Well, he's also working out, so he might be sweaty or like, it's not done up.
True.
We haven't seen him rocking it at like a music festival or something.
I'll wait and see. Let's see when training camp starts how it is. Wait and see approach.
Connor asks, who would rock the better mullet, me or you?
Oh, me, 100%.
Well, yeah, you have the capacity.
Yeah, I could grow a mullet.
Which helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Olaf said, "What's the most tired storyline around right now?" The Trevor Zegras story.
Like, there's a story still?
Per some people, he's on the trade block still.
I mean, I am tired of the fact that every time I read about the Ducks, there's, even when it's like their writers, so like Eric Stevens, I don't know if the Hockey News guys have written about this, but it just feels like every time the Ducks are brought up, there's always this like passing mention of Zegras and Gibson being on the trading block, and it's like this is so stale that it's like rotten now. Like it smells like it's like there's like foam, around it now. Like it's disgusting.
Like with the discussion like of the Athletic podcast about who the Ducks will take, there was like a whole thing about like, well, if they trade, like I'm hearing they're gonna trade Zegras and that's gonna impact who they end up taking.
That was so stupid.
It like that is the most tired storyline around the Ducks, and like the fact of like
there's just nothing new. There's no new information.
There's been zero new information from when Frank Saravelli first reported it back in whenever the hell that was.
Like, I think you and I are both of the belief that, like, it's possible that Trevor Zegras gets traded. It's possible that a deal could make sense. Like, unlikely, but could. But when you then set that aside and look at the actual information that's out there, it's like, ever since the initial report, and, report is doing a lot of work there because it's giving it a lot of credit.
The
There's just
report that the Ducks listened on a trade offer.
there's been nothing new, and anything that's been remotely new has just been kind of more of the same.
Or
So yeah,
pure conjecture.
it's just very stale. It's rotten. It's decaying. It's stinky. It's gross.
Yeah. And what storyline, he said, what storyline do you wish would die a slow? Oh, well, I mean, it's that
Yeah.
storyline.
Yes. Yes.
And Rooch said, with the apparently lack of big name activity this offseason, does Pat Verbeek survive until the end of the season should the Ducks draft top 5 again? I think he does.
I think Pat Verbeek is a lock to come back no matter what happens this season. I think Greg Cronin might be a different conversation, but Pat Verbeek is very safe in his job, which I think explains a lot of the way he's approached this rebuild.
I would agree. All right, now I'm going to go to Twitter and then YouTube, Twitch. If you guys have any questions, please let us know. Throw them in there, and I'll get to you guys next. Our good friend Trevor Zebras asked us, scenario, let's just say Verbeek is actually very serious on the idea of trading Zegras right after we had just talked about all this, but is going to wait until next offseason. What would a Zegras season have to look like, in your opinion, to have Verbeek saying, actually, I don't think I'm going to trade him?
Well, I'm gonna reword the question.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be the same meaning as like what makes Zegras untouchable.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very high bar. There's just very few players who can meet that. That being said, with Zegras, there is the contract component of it, which is that he's going to be up for an extension soon. So they have to think about that. But I think as long as he has his normal production of, 60 to 70 points, and he does play a solid two-way brand of hockey, why would Pat Verbeek trade that player at that point?
Yep.
Doesn't make sense.
If he does everything that Pat Verbeek asked of him, play better defensively, while still being an offensive driver, doing things that other players can't do on the team, putting up 60 to 70 points, it makes him kind of irreplaceable for this team.
Why would you trade that player? At that point, what is the rationale? What is driving you to do that? It's let me just trade a very good player in his prime. That doesn't make sense. So yes, but I think if he has a season where those doubts remain, then you're going to still hear these dumb conversations, unfortunately.
Yep. And then he also asked, what would you say Verbeek's biggest accomplishment has been so far and his biggest letdown so far?
Ooh.
Biggest accomplishment, I think it's easy. I think it's the Drysdale for Gauthier trade.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah.
Like that, or maybe if you want to say the Pavel Minchikov draft, drafting him at 10.
I think that the draft is kind of hard because they're high picks.
Yeah.
So I think 10 is definitely the territory where you can start messing up. But I think Drysdale for Gauthier is it's just masterful. Yeah. That's one that takes, it takes some gumption to make a trade like that, because you are, now granted, Pat Verbeek didn't draft Jamie Drysdale, but you're giving up on a guy who was a high pick for the organization, and you're taking a risk on a guy who's never played in the NHL. So took a lot of guts to make that trade, but I think that's definitely his biggest accomplishment. And then I would say his biggest failure has just been kind of the supporting moves. I think that he hasn't really brought in anyone else as kind of another next wave to support the young players. It's been a lot of veteran guys, but that don't really move the needle and that also cost quite a bit.
There's been two that have worked out contract-wise well in Gudas and Vetrano.
Yep.
Vetrano, you can nitpick more just because of the defensive impact, but the salary cap hit.
Gudas is a good one.
Gudas, I think, is a really good one. But I'd say that's a big letdown. I think another one is not capitalizing on having all of the draft capital to make a bigger trade.
I thought you were going to say caps. I thought you were going to say weaponizing cap space,
or going out and being able to get a good player that has a higher salary that a team is trying to get rid of, or things like that. Is
this about Patrick Laine?
No, not really.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
But Alex DeBrincat,
people were pissed about that.
Oh, I didn't care.
Patrick Laine thing.
I didn't care that much either way.
Yeah.
But I think not capitalizing on having that draft capital to go out and get a guy to be able to help out this team more. I think that those are the biggest letdowns.
Yeah, I do want to throw out some takes on the Laine thing, because I think people were really pissed, judging by my Twitter mentions, about the Line thing, about the fact that the Canadians traded for him and didn't really give up much at all, and they got a draft pick for taking on Patrick Line. I do think that the Canadians and the Ducks are in very different situations, where the Ducks have their stable of forward talent, and you could say, well, you can never have enough talent. They don't have a Patrick Line, and I think that those are fine arguments, and I won't fight you to the hilt on it. But it is a different situation, more established talent up front, and then for the Canadians, they're still trying to find that. They have some pieces, Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky. They just drafted Demidov, but they're still kind of in this business of, we need to take home run swings. And so I think for the Canadians, it's an A+ move. For the Ducks, if they had done it, it's like, it would have probably still been a strong grade, because especially if you get the draft pick. But I just don't think the Ducks had the same need to make this happen. I don't think that the same burning impetus for this to be the kind of trade that they would pursue. So for the people that were upset about the Ducks not getting Line, I get it, I hear you, but I wouldn't be too upset. I wouldn't be rioting on Cattell Avenue.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, well, for those of you in our Twitch or YouTube chat, and yes, you can find us at twitch.tv/crashspawned. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime gaming sub. You can be just like our good friend Lou, who resubbed for 71 months.
Jeez.
Thank you so much, Lou. And with that, you get special emotes in the chat, special badges next to your name. And please, if you have any questions, drop them in. Or if you prefer YouTube, and yes, I know everyone listening to this has a YouTube account. I have one. My son even has one. YouTube kids. My wife has one. Everyone has a YouTube account. Go check us out, youtube.com/crashthepond. And you can subscribe to the channel in a way that's completely free to you there. It does help out. Like our videos. Let's get a little like spike. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that like button.
Like it now.
You can also super chat us, do a whole lot of things to help us out over there on YouTube. So check us out there. But looks like it's quiet today as we're in the middle of summer in our Twitch and YouTube chat. So let's just get to shit show questions. Wow, I am just struggling today. But
we're rounding back into form. It's training camp.
Yeah. Bring Perry Home says, describe this GIF in 5 words or less for our non-Discord listeners, then recite a haiku on how its repeated use has been better for your lives. No, I will not do that.
I think it's just, it's a GIF of a...
Oh, no, the answer's just no, we won't do it.
Oh, okay,
no.
we won't.
No.
Okay.
I'm pulling the heel move here and just saying no. Hammock M said, we know that Jake wears a tank top to show off his guns. They are not that great, but okay. Who has bigger guns, Jake or Hulk Hogan? 36-inch pythons. I'm going to go me because mine did not take steroids, even if they are not.
Wow. Playing that card.
There's also other cards I could play with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I was going to say.
If we wanted to go there.
At least you're not, what is it, racist? Is he racist?
There's a lot of things with Hulk Hogan, but yes, that is certainly one of them. A snitch is another one.
Oh, didn't know about that one.
Oh, yeah, Jesse Ventura was trying to get wrestlers to be unionized workers to be able to get them actual health care and things like that back in the 70s. And guess who snitched to Vince McMahon? Old Hulk Hogan.
Nice. Company man.
Yep.
Company man.
Lou and Shit Show also said, talk about All In. All In was an almost perfect show. Bryan Danielson winning the title. I did not know if I was a fan of him winning the Owen instead of Hangman Adam Page with everything they're doing with him. But that moment, that match, everything around that, Bryan Danielson getting his moment and proving that he is the best wrestler of this generation, potentially the greatest wrestler of all time, was just absolutely perfect. And so many other great moments. That's the one that I think everyone will remember is Bryan Danielson and that match, everything that went into that match. It was just perfection. No notes.
So I'm gonna go through some quick hitting nuggets here from the last few weeks.
Okay.
Ryan Getzlaff, Department of Player Safety.
Great for him.
He has been. You have no thoughts on that, huh?
No thoughts. Love it.
We don't know what he's going to be doing.
Yeah.
Which is part of the problem, but he has. I do find it interesting just in the sense that would seem to put an end to his Ducks front office career.
We still don't know necessarily what he was doing with the front office.
Well, it seems like he was more in a player development
Yeah,
role than
yeah.
actual front office stuff.
But was living in Nashville, so wasn't with the team on a regular basis.
Yeah, I don't really quite understand. I feel like he's feeling out his post playing career
Yeah,
because, which is fine. I mean, I can imagine it being very difficult to go from doing the same thing for 15 years to now trying to figure out what's next. So
yeah,
we wish him well, and
yeah.
we hope that he cleans that place up.
Will Ryan Getzloff be doing Department of Player Safety videos?
That would be great.
I would love that.
I would love that too. Yeah, but we need him to be on camera. I don't want just the
Oh,
voiceovers. Yeah.
and I don't want it just to be him reading a script either.
Yeah, no, I want him to be like, I want all the
What
ums.
the hell was this guy thinking?
Yeah.
He's not respecting the game. Just give me it.
The Ducks tweeted on August 21st a picture of their away jersey saying, reminding you this is our attire for business trips. And just want to reiterate, the away jerseys are great.
Both jerseys are great.
They're my favorite of the two, but the away jersey just pops. Scrolling up here, I'm just going through my Twitter timeline. um, so okay, before I get to this really, oh man, I have a bunch here. Okay, I want your quick thoughts. I want your quick thoughts on the Predators and Sharks trade. Yaroslav Askarov to the Sharks.
It's
Mostly, I just want your thoughts on the Predators whining about Askarov after he was traded.
it is like the ultimate attempt at like a screw job, which is just, or not even a screw job. It's just like
Screw job.
trying to save face. Like it's so dumb. Like
They're doing
why,
what the Flyers did with Cutter Gauthier.
yeah, it's like why would a player not want to be traded if one, you've signed your star goaltender to a long-term contract, which makes his place in the franchise not as set in stone, and two, you signed a veteran backup to a 2-year deal. Like
That's the kicker.
that is the one. Like sure, Askarov, like probably saw the Saros deal as maybe being harder, but still, you've seen plenty of times where the veteran ends up getting overtaken, all these type of stuff. Like Saros is a great goalie. Signing Wedgwood is the one where if I'm Askarov, I'm like, I just had a great season in the AHL. Like I led the team to weren't they like the best team in the AHL last year or something like that? Like
I don't know.
They had some insane record from what I'm recalling. And yet he doesn't get the call up to be the backup next season.
Well,
Like,
the Predators thought there is probably, you have to earn the number 2 spot, but you have like you kind of have like an inside track.
But if I'm him, I would be the number 2 guy. Like this should not even be a question.
I would agree with that.
Like the whole purpose, or the whole thought process was he was like, if I'm not guaranteed an NHL spot, I want to trade.
And I think he's earned that spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess
like
yeah, it's
good for him. The Sharks went out here. The Predators look dumb as hell.
And I think the Sharks trading the pick that they got for Tomas Hertl
Yeah.
is just beautiful trading. I mean,
Yep.
they man, Mike Greer's just had a great summer. So
they've had the best offseason.
they were in such a bad spot going into the offseason, and they've come out of it like.
I mean, it's kind of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, it's kind of like what Pat Verbeek had to do when he first started. Like he didn't do anything this impactful, I would say, but he had to clean up the mess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what Mike Greer has done here. He's cleaned up the mess.
He's cleaned it up, but he's also gone like he's made some pretty daring moves, I would say, along the way. And then a couple of other notes.
We do have a question in YouTube chat. Anaheim said, "Does Beckett start the 25 season with the Ducks?"
Oh, 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I'll go yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say because he is so far behind the 8 ball physically, but
yeah,
I'll say yes.
I'll go yes.
This is really random, and maybe like 2% of this podcast listenership will care, but did you see the picture of Yegor Sidorov training today?
No.
So he was wearing gloves that have an orange cuff and that are black.
Did you tweet about this so I can look up the picture? Okay.
Yes, and they have white lettering. And those look like Ducks gloves to me. But the Ducks gloves that we've seen in all of the promotional content with the new jerseys have orange fingers along with the orange cuffs. So I'm just very confused where these what these gloves are because
Maybe the goals are wearing those next season. I mean, he's wearing the old pants and the old jersey and the old helmet also.
yeah, that part of it doesn't really matter to me as much because all the prospects at like the development camp were all that gear. So, but I just don't know what those gloves are. Like they're not the team gloves in the pictures. They're not the reverse retro gloves because the reverse retro gloves didn't have the white lettering. So like are like did they change their mind on the orange fingers? Is that actually not happening? Like I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, I hope they didn't. Those orange fingers were great.
I like this look. I like that I think the
like
orange
this look.
stands out a little bit more this way.
I like the orange fingers more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're just generic that he bought for himself, but that makes no sense.
I had someone reply to me, "Oh, well, different brands have different placement of colors." I'm like, "No, they don't."
The cuff is the same for every single team. Bonnie's asking, are those his junior gloves? No, I don't.
Nope, because the Saskatoon blades were blue and yellow. So
yeah.
these are not those colors. So and like, why would the Gulls have different gloves than the Ducks? That doesn't make sense either. So
yeah, something doesn't make sense here. But yeah, the cuff, it doesn't matter what the brand is. It's all the same for the cuff and the design. The design doesn't change from brand to brand. The design changes from team to team, and the brand makes that design.
The color layout is like the color layout has to be the same for each glove.
Yeah,
like it can't be like you're not going to have one glove with all black like fingers and one glove with all orange fingers. Like that's against the NHL uniform rules.
What were the gloves for the reverse retro? Or were they all orange?
No, they were the same exact layout except the letters were black instead of white. They were black with white trim.
Huh. And now I'm trying to even remember what those gloves look like. I'm trying to find. Okay, got it.
I googled this today. You can see the difference, right?
Yeah. I see it.
This is a mystery. And I'm glad that you've caught on because it's perplexing.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe they backtracked on the gloves.
I hope not.
I mean, I wouldn't hate it, but yeah, I think that I do like the white letters on these gloves, though. I think that they really pop. So
yeah,
anyway,
keep the orange fingers, please.
And then something else I want to bring up as we get out of here. Phil Hewlett. Just silence for you. The Ducks PR announcer tweeted today that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna say the facts.
Okay.
He was asked who the captain will be, or no, he said, "Hey, someone I think asked him something to the effect of, hey, Phil, you practicing your Radko Gudas captain announcement?" Like, you know, kind of maybe in jest, and he responded something to the effect of, "Yep, working on it right now." And it's like, I don't know if he was being playful, I don't know if he was being a troll, I don't know what, but he has since deleted the tweet after it got a little attention.
Yeah.
Radko Gudas captain?
I mean, it's certainly possible. I mean, Elliot Friedman put in his article that Radko is the person going to the NHL media tour.
Yeah.
So maybe that he's like, is that the next captain? Like, kind of more speculating on it. And then this, like, it feels like it's a bit where there's smoke, there's fire. I think he would be certainly a fine choice for this. My only minor complaint on that is just his contract is only for this season and next. So I would rather them just name the captain and have him be as a younger player and have him be an assistant. But I think with where his standing is on the team, I could see why they would want to do this.
Also on the Victory Plus kind of like graphic that was tweeted out today, Radko's face is at the top of the graphic above Leo, Zegras, and Cam. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Phil Hewlett just maybe accidentally revealing one of the biggest piece of news in recent Ducks history.
Let me ask you this. I just saw this post on Twitter. Utah HC Fanatics jerseys won't be available for public purchase until January. The head coach of Utah HC, Andre Tourny, said this on French radio.
Well, so it begins. The Fanatics experience begins.
Well, I guess we saw with the Ducks jerseys last year, the 30th, that, I mean, if you don't have a design locked in, it could take a while to get the replica ones in.
I mean, I think people are going to dunk on Fanatics for this, but it's probably just because, Utah didn't come into existence until, like...
They didn't have this jersey design ready. And
Yeah.
that color is not one they probably had.
Yeah. So I wouldn't go too crazy on that, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, every little misstep is going to be Fnatic's feet will be held to the fire. So
Yeah. But
okay.
Yep.
I think that will do it for our show. So
Yeah.
thank you to everyone who listened. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. Oh, we have one last question.
What former Duck player does Leo remind you of? He doesn't really remind me of anyone, to be honest.
He's very much one of one to me.
Maybe a little bit of Bobby Ryan, just with how long his stick is and how he's able to move the puck.
Well, I was going to say a little bit of like Ryan Getzlaff, just with the size.
The way that he's able to move the puck and deke around guys reminds me of Bobby Ryan a little bit.
It's like a weird mix of Getzlaff
Yeah.
and Bobby Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't hate that. No love for, I don't know. I was going to come up with a random player, but I'm too tired.
Steve Ruchin.
Yeah. I was actually going to say Steve Ruchin. Damn.
I read your mind.
Okay. Well, on that note.
That's how you know we've been doing this together for too long.
Wow. Too long, huh? I see how it is.
Season 8, if this is the first episode. Is
Oh,
that
shit.
What it is?
What season will this be?
Our first season was the 17-18 season.
So 1, 18, 19, 19, 20 does count.
Yep.
2021, 21, 22, 22, 23. Yeah, season 8.
Season 8.
Jesus, we're going on a decade?
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about that, but I'll say it's a good thing.
Yeah. Season 8 of the podcast has begun.
That also means people have been listening and tuning in for 8 years.
Yes.
Which is kind of wild to think about. So,
Yep.
well, not 8 years, 8 seasons. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this show, there are some great ways to support us. Number one, go check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/crashthepond. For $2 a month, you get access to our patrons-only Discord server. This is a great way to support the show at a low cost, but also you get to connect with other diehard Ducks fans. You get to connect with us. We're in there all the time, debating different topics, whether it's about hockey, of course, prospects, but then we've got a food channel. There's a channel for every sport. That's just $2 a month. Easy way to support the show. You can upgrade that pledge to $7.50 a month. So in addition to the Discord server, you also get access to 2 bonus podcast episodes a month. And we have a really exciting show coming up, probably before the season starts, but our points draft, where we draft our teams for the upcoming season. The person that has the most points, whose team has the most points, wins, and then the loser has to do a punishment. That's coming up. 2 bonus podcasts a month. And in addition, you also get exclusive player video breakdowns. So, for example, there was a ton leading up to the draft. I posted a bunch of videos analyzing different prospects. And now going through all the players that the Ducks did draft, and throughout the season, we'll be posting more of those as well. So get a lot of bonus content that way. And that's at patreon.com/crashthepond. You can also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a rating and a review. If you are a longtime listener or a new listener, but if you've been listening to us and you have not left us a review, use the start of this new season as an opportunity to voice your opinion. Let us know what you think about the show. Leave your review. We greatly appreciate it. You can also subscribe to us on Spotify. You can leave us feedback there anonymously. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. That is a great way to support us as well. Videos there all throughout the season. Check out our website, crashthepond.com. Follow us on Twitter. And on that note, we will talk to you next time. Have a good one.
Bye.